Leeds United are set for the permanent signing of Joe Rodon in the summer. Sort of, because there's a lot of ifs, buts, maybes, and we'll get into it. We'll discuss what Tottenham want from Leeds United, what Leeds United want from the situation, what Joe Rodon himself is likely to want. But first, subscribe. Cheers. I'm pushing on towards 3,000. That's my goal for the end of the season. It'd be massively appreciated if you guys could help me get there. It's one click. Thank you. Anyway, now we need to talk all about Joe Rodon's permanent move. So with the permanent move for Joe Rodon, we have to be completely honest here and say that the reason that a lot of Leeds United content creators haven't been discussing transfer news is because it is absolutely impossible to discuss it in much detail right now. There is a hell of a lot of instability because it depends on so many factors, including the league that we're going to be in, what's happening with various other players. I'll get into all of that in a little bit more detail later on, but there is still some movement. I'll discuss that in a little bit more detail further on, but first, would we be interested? This is the first question that you have to ask when it comes to any deal. There are going to be players all across the football world that are potentially wanting a move, and let's be honest, obviously, yes. He's had 44 appearances at Leeds United already, where he only had 24 at Spurs, and he has made that right centre-back position his starting berth. Charlie Cresswell came into this season, new contract, hopeful of playing a hell of a lot of football, and he ended up with very, very little. And that is because Joe Rodon has been absolutely imperious. Daniel Farke, like Marcelo Bielsa before him, likes a right footer at right centre-back, left footer at left centre-back because it helps the passing lanes. That means that Cresswell's main competition is Joe Rodon. And with him being so good all season, he's just not found his way into the team. He is an essential part of our backline. And this is why I feel that if there is any potential for a move at all that Leeds United can make happen, we will absolutely do what we can to make that work. And the league will make a difference, but I will get into that. Spurs have also potentially provided a little bit of detail on what they'd need. There was a news report that was initially from maybe Football Insider, but it's been recently verified by slightly more reliable sources, the YEP. And he's definitely not set for a Spurs return. Last summer, he was being put on sale by Spurs, which already tells you that they didn't really want him around. In the end, he settled for a loan at Leeds United because we couldn't put the fee together because of FFP stuff. But at the end of the day, their upgrades, which include signing Mickey van de Ven, annihilate any chance he's got of getting in their first team. He has been fantastic in the Championship. But Van de Ven and Romero is a pairing that are going to be very, very difficult for anyone to try and break into. So it feels like Joe Rodon's future is not at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They were reportedly prepared to sell last summer for 10 to 15 million pounds, and this is where things get a little bit interesting because you'd think, having looked at all of his performances in the time since, because let's be honest, in his time beforehand, he wasn't looking too impressive, that valuation would have shot up. And that's fair enough because that could be the case, but at the same time, his contract duration has lessened with it. And the longer a contract, the more valuable a player, because the more a club can just sit and wait and say, well, no, because we don't need to sell because we've got a long time on this contract. You also need to consider his age, being 26 years old. This is potentially where Spurs can get the most potential value out of him. They would hope. So it's still looking like a 10 to 15 million pound purchase if it were to go through. And the YEP have said that they do not look like they have increased their valuation. Now, we also need to think about the fact that Joe Rodon will want to move to the right side. Joe Rodon will want to move to someone that will play him a lot, somewhere that he's comfortable, somewhere that he's happy, and there's a lot of different factors that he'll be looking for. The first up being plenty of playing time. He moved away from Spurs in the first place because he could have been one of those boring squad rotation players like you get dozens of them at Chelsea. But he's sort of elected against that. He's moved to the Championship because he knows he's going to play a lot of football there. So I feel like that's something that he will actively be hunting down when he is making that move. In addition to that, he would ideally want Premier League football, in my opinion. He's proven that he is a top-tier Championship centre-back. Hello, Iris. Who has a lot of ability at this level and will outperform most defences. But he'll also need to consider the environment. At Leeds United, there has been some shift towards being a very, very good positive culture where everyone is happy. There's a lot of Welsh players around him, players that he's played with a hell of a lot already in his career. And ultimately, I think combine the good environment with competitive football, with him playing a hell of a lot, I think we're in pole position to get this move done. I'm going to pause the recording until Iris. There we go. That took longer than I thought, but I do think we're in pole position. And the real question that I think that we need to answer is, can Leeds United get the move done? This is where the real, actual big challenge comes in, because there's a lot of practicality involved in getting a transfer finished, and there are a hell of a lot of individual factors, especially this season. Normally, there's a lot going on. Normally, you've got a question of where else is there interest, what's going on with the budget, all that sort of stuff, but things are a little bit more tricky for us right now. And the fact is, we don't know what league we're going to be in next season. As I mentioned earlier, that makes discussing transfer news in detail almost impossible, because we don't know what players we're going to be able to attract. We don't know whether, being a Premier League side, it would be easy to get that job done, because TV revenue in that league is more than £100 million. In the Championship, it's 8. So that's definitely something that we'd need to work through. Actually knowing what our revenue coming in is and being able to work within it. And that also brings the FFP issues of how tight is the budget going to be. Hopefully not too tight. We can do a little bit of a rebuild, because it looks like that's what's going to happen anyway, and that needs to happen relating to the Lone Rats and what's going to happen with them, because that is another massive question. The likes of Brendan Aronson, Max Vuber, Mark Rocker, Rasmus Christensen, Diego Llorente are all players that will not be welcome back at this football club. That's not a question for me. That's truth. That is fact. They're not going to come back. They're not going to be welcomed back by the fans, especially if we don't get promoted. If we do get promoted, I feel like selling them will be simple enough. But if we don't get promoted, things will be very, very tricky for us and for them. So if we can get as many of those moved off the books as possible, ideally sold, then that could add to the transfer budget, which makes a Joe Rodon move more doable. In addition to that, we need to consider the active squads movements as well. In the Premier League, we might have something of a rebuild. It might be a matter of maybe we sell Bamford, maybe Junior Firpo goes out because he's not got very long left on his contract. But if we don't go up again, it's a question of who gets sold. Who do we keep? Because if it is a 2-year project, and it has to be a 2-year project, then we would look to retain the rights. We'd look to retain players like Jorginho Rutter, like Crescencio Somerville, like Willy Gnonto. And that might not necessarily be possible, but we'd invest quite heavily in trying to do that, and that would make signing Joe Rodon, in addition to trying to keep those players, very, very tough. So let's hope that it all ends up okay, shall we? What I think will happen is, I believe that we will go up, because I am an optimist, and you guys know this, but if we don't go up, then I think it'll be very, very difficult to get this across the line. This was more of a video saying, look, he's on the market. Circumstances will dictate whether or not we can get him, but I almost guarantee Leeds United will be in the conversation for that move and trying to sign him. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to help push towards 3,000. That would be massively appreciated. You could even become a channel member. First month of channel membership revenues are now going to Prostate Cancer UK, because it's a hugely important charity that means a hell of a lot to me. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. I will see you later. Specifically, I will see you later when I'm doing a Football Manager stream. They're coming back. I know. It's so exciting. See you later.
Oh.
Why is the video not playing?
Guess the video. Oh. Guess the video's done then. That's my outro sorted.